Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. We're going to invite some people on here before we get started. Hope everybody's having a great day.
Cloudy and overcast.
Yeah, is it Friday today?
It is Friday already. And it's the 15th. It's halfway through. Halfway through May.
It's happening fast.
Yep. What is going on? There we go. And Brian, and Nancy, and Michael. Try that.
All right, awesome. So, we have been going over John Maxwell's book, Winning with People. Oh, can you see it? There we go. All right, so a question that you want to ask yourself, are we willing to focus on others? So, strangers are what friends are made of. All human beings possess the desire to connect with other people, and it doesn't matter whether you're an introvert, extrovert, whether you're rich or poor. We all have that need for connection sometimes, and sometimes that's motivated by the desire for love, and it can just as easily be prompted by the feelings of loneliness and the need for acceptance and the quest for fulfillment or the desire to achieve in business. So how do we fulfill our desire for relationships, and what is the best way to get started? And in other words, how do we connect with people? So the answer is we must we must stop thinking about ourselves and begin focusing on the people who we have desire to build a relationship with. So to increase these chances of connecting with another person, you need to understand and learn these 6 principles. Number 1 is the big picture. The entire population of the world, with a minor exception, is composed of others. Number 2, the exchange principle. Instead of putting others in their place, you must put ourselves in place. Number 3, the learning principle. Each person we meet has the potential to teach us something. And 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. I need to number these. Number 4 is charisma. The charisma principle. People are interested in people who are interested in them. Number 5, the number 10 principle. Believing the best in people usually brings the best of people. And then number 6, the confrontation principle. Caring for people should precede confronting people. So when you stop worrying so much about yourself and start looking at others and what they desire, you build a bridge to the other people, and you become the kind of person that others actually want to be around. So this is just the introduction to the next section of what we're going to be going over, and each one of these is going to take a little longer to go through, which we can't put all of them together in just one video today, but this is going to be the introduction. So Jeff, do you have any comments before we go into the next one?
The next one?
Well, for on Monday, because this was kind of the introduction of what the next step is with connecting.
No, we should go into it. Do you have that?
I do not. So do you want to begin it?
I will. I thought we were going to go through that, so.
Oh, I did not. I think I asked you, but we were on so many different calls and there was a bunch of stuff getting done yesterday. Sometimes when we ask stuff, it doesn't always register. I do it too, so I can't say nothing. But I'll just have you begin that and then I'll go through the next one.
So, the connection, who we are, or who we willing to focus on others. Are we willing to focus on others? Strangers are what friends are made of. So we've got a couple different things we're going to go through. Tina's here, Zach's here, hello, hello. The big picture principle, the exchange principle, learning principle, charisma, the number 10, and the confrontational. So the big picture principle, is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay. So the big picture principle, the entire population of the world, with one minor exception, is composed of others. So you kind of have to look at the fact that not everybody's like you. The person starts off live when he lives outside of himself. That was a quote by Albert Einstein. A person first starts off life. It's life, not live. When he lives outside of himself. So first starts life. Why won't it let me edit?
It won't. You can't. That's an email, dear.
I thought I could edit my own writing.
We need to finish our coffee first before we do this.
The question I must ask myself is, do I have a hard time putting others first? Read between the lines. From here, everything looks different when you start focusing on others. 3 things to see the big picture. Perspective. There are 1 billion Chinese people who don't know what's going on Facebook at all. Maturity. A lot of times people think maturity is age-driven. I can tell you from meeting a ton of people, maturity is not age-driven. Maturity has to do with just accepting things for the way they are and dealing with things in a more adult, professional way. I've met 13-year-olds and I've met 60-year-olds. The 13-year-old is more mature than the 60-year-old. It just kind of depends on where they're at. Responsibility. Others first attitude. So open your eyes to the big picture. Get out of your own little world. So a lot of times people live inside this little box where this is all they see. These are the only people they talk to. This is the only places they go. Now all of a sudden we can't go anywhere. So everybody's crying and whining. Check your ego at the door. Ego is not thinking big of yourself, but less of others. Understanding what brings fulfillment. And then it goes into the exchange principle. So Jessica Garcia, what's up, sir? The main thing that I really get from Maxwell on, being able to understand you're not the only person. Not Dr. Wayne Dyer, who am I thinking of? There's another guy, wrote a book, The Purpose-Driven Life. The Purpose-Driven Life, the very first page says, there is a God and I am not him. Kind of stating that, you're going to run into a lot of people with a lot of ideas, with a lot of different value systems, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with all these different people. And if you don't learn how to deal with all these different people and you don't accept who you are, you're going to have a hard time dealing with everybody else. Being secure with who you are and what you're about. So that's why I think the books like Strength Finder, Personality Profiling, are so important to understand who am I, what am I good at, what is my personality, what drives me, what motivates me. So there's 5 questions I always ask when I recruit somebody. I'm actually going to go meet somebody at 3 o'clock today that's new to the team. And here's kind of the line of questionings that I always get together when I get together with somebody. And Ellen, you're on the list as well. Get together, and 5 questions I'm going to ask. Number 1 is, what do you think your strengths are? This is always funny to me because people kind of sometimes struggle. They might know 1 or 2, but they struggle to come up with usually more than 2. They're like, here are my strengths. I know that. But then I ask, what are your weaknesses, or what do you feel you need to improve? Everybody has a long list. I always think it's funny that the strengths are always a shorter list than the weaknesses. But that's because we're the most critical of ourselves, which, is both good and bad, right? It's good to look at what you can improve on, but it's not good to focus only what you need to improve on. After I get through those 2, the next question is where would you like to be in the next 2 to 5 years? Where do you want to end up in the next 2 to 5 years? Very important question to ask, because you'll find this in people who are struggling with depression, anxiety, displacement, sorrow. They're always living in the past. If you live in the past, if you think about the past, if you're always looking backwards, typically that brings up loss, that brings up hurt, that brings up pain, that brings up anger, that brings stuff that you cannot change. And by living there, you basically destroy the vision of the future because you're actually looking backwards. I mean, it's very hard to look backwards and forwards at the same time. If you do it driving, you won't make it. But by looking forward, where do I want to end up in the next 2 to 5 years? What you can do is kind of, hi Bess, you can redirect your entire thought process for a positive. And that's actually what we really want to do. So that question, where do you want to be in 2 to 5 years? So important. The next question, what motivates you? This gets down to, people are both mission driven and money driven. What is the mission? What are we trying to accomplish? What does that look like? A lot of people are very surface driven, like they don't know exactly what they want. They kind of have an idea, maybe sort of. It's very glossed over. It's very non-descriptive. There's not a lot of detail going into it, and the less detail you have going into it, the less likely you will get it, unfortunately. So they said the more detailed, the better. In the book Think and Grow Rich, they talk about, having an absolute detailed description of exactly what you want. So that way you can focus on it. And typically, it has to do with a number. Here is the number you want to make. Here is the number you want to be worth. Here is the number you want to generate. Because a number is really good because it's a finite thing. It's something that has a beginning and end. It's something that you can describe to other people. It's very specific. But what most people do is they BS themselves into saying stuff like, well, I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be okay. Well, what number is that? What number is comfortable? The reason you're not comfortable is because you don't know what number it is. And you're not hitting that number. Or maybe you are hitting that number and you haven't even realized you've gotten there. Because that's actually possible. It's possible to hit a number where you really are comfortable, but you don't even realize it because you don't have the number in mind and you don't realize that you're actually already there. What I found is people who are, again, depressed, people who are hurting, people who are, dealing, they're always living in the past. What they should have done, what they could have done, what they would have done, Ron's here. What's up? Nancy's here from Wisconsin. Hello. So you got to look forward. You got to look forward and you got to know what motivates me. What motivates me? And surround yourself. So there's a bunch of things, music, movies, people, activities, tracking. So I get down to tracking. You cannot be successful in anything if you're not tracking what you're doing. That's the reason why most people's financials are horrible, because they don't track anything. I was one of these people. I didn't track anything. I thought that I could outwork my stupid financial decisions. What that means is I literally thought I could come ahead if I just was able to make more. Guess what? That doesn't work. Not only does it not work in finances, but it doesn't work in any area of your life. There's another saying that says you can't outrun your fork. And what that means is you can't work out hard enough. If you have bad eating habits, no matter how hard you work out, you will not be able to overcome the bad eating habits. The same thing is true in finance. The same thing is true in business. So I found tracking has a lot to do with success. If you look at the higher level professional you are, the more you track. Think about it. Olympic athlete tracks everything. Not now because nobody's able to do anything, but I'm sure there's somebody still out there running. There's people still out there lifting weights. There's people still out there doing stuff, and they're tracking exactly what they do. Race car drivers track everything to the 100th, 1000th of a second. Horse race tracks to the 100th, 1000th of a second. Long jump tracks how many jumps you're doing, how far. They're weighing what your body weight is. Think about all the different things that go into tracking an Olympic athlete, whether it's swimming or running or, jogging or whatever they do. And meanwhile, here we are. The general average person doesn't track anything at all. By the way, your iPhone tracks every single thing you do. It tracks the amount of time you spend on every single application. So if you really want to know who you are, or you want to know who somebody else is, grab their phone, open up that system, and figure out how much time people are spending. And, you know, I looked at this the other day, and it was really ridiculous because I was on Facebook for like 6 hours or something in one day. So tracking. So those 5 questions are strengths, weaknesses, where do you want to be in 2 to 5 years, what motivates you, and the last question is what is the most important thing in your life right now? What is the most important thing in your life right now? What that does is that helps kind of as a leader or as a sponsor or as a team member, that helps me figure out why are you really doing stuff? You know, what's the most important thing that's pending right now? For some people, it's getting a house. For some people, it's just making money and feeling secure. For some people, it's building up a savings account. For some people, you know, everybody kind of has a different, it's moving. What systems do you recommend for practical tracking? I think most of us have never heard. I mean, Gabby, great question. I started using a notebook. I mean, it just depends on what you're doing, right? If it's real estate, for instance, if it's real estate, how many people are you really prospecting? How many signs are you getting out? How many ads are you placing? That's a good thing to track, right?
He uses a notebook. I prefer the Franklin and Covey planner because you can actually mark down the times and put in appointments. Now, I put appointments in my phone as well, but it actually helps me track exactly how many people I've been presenting to or how many appointments I set, so that way I could go back through and actually check on both calendars and make sure that I'm doing a specific number by the end of the month. That's just what I like, but I like structure, and to me a notebook is a little chaotic. So, but
yeah, and I use a notebook because when I'm getting people started, I'm just going to talk about direct sales because that's what this is really about, or the show is focused on because of our school. I use a notebook because it's really easy to teach somebody to go get a 50-cent notebook versus a $50 planner and a $100 cover and all this other stuff. People are like, oh my gosh, that's too much money, I can't do it. But I say a notebook, 1 notebook a month. You write your goals in the very front of it. The very first page is all the goals. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to accomplish 100 personal presentations, and I'm behind right now. 100 personal presentations. Drop down, what are the most important things I need to accomplish this month? Now, this is just me. I kind of detail it out. What are the most important things that I need to accomplish this month? Like, what is happening in my business that I need to do? Well, I want to recruit 20 people. That's quite a few. We're 6 in right now. And it's halfway through the month, so we have a lot of work to do. I mean, another 15 people or 14 people in a very short period of time. So I've got to get on it. But if I want 20 people, I know I have to present to 100. So those numbers match. What I find a lot of times people do is they'll say, and then I use the notebook for every time I present, I've got a list of 1 through 100. I've already written out 1 through 100. So when I look back in that notebook and I open to the second page and there's 2 pages that open and it's 1, skip a line, skip a line, skip a line, and it's 2 pages, if I've only filled up part of it, I know I'm kidding myself. You know, I'm kidding myself. I want to sponsor 20 people, but I haven't even shown 15. Like, that's how most people run their business, is they run it without, you know, any expectation, any accountability. It's just movement, you know. And so how do you know if you're getting ahead? How can you plan if you're just winging it, for instance? And most people that's how they build their business. They just wing it. But when you start tracking and those things start making sense, I'm going to do this many presentations, I'm going to do this many listing appointments. If I do this many listing appointments, I get this many listings. If I do this many buyers appointments, I get this many buyers. Right now we're running in real estate again and we're having appointments. So far we're 6 or 8 appointments. While we were sitting here, I had to text another buyer because we just got their information back on what's going on. I'm then going to follow up with them. Call them and figure out what we need to do next because they're going to be part of our credit program. They're about a year out from buying. They have a couple things. They have one thing in particular that we have to take care of that's going to need a payment plan negotiation or settlement for sure. We're going to dispute it first and kind of go from there. So These are all things that this is how we track. Now, tracking necessarily isn't the principle in here, but if you want to live a better life, you have to track what's going on. So Tony Robbins said, if it's worthy of accomplishment, it's worth writing down. If it's worthy of accomplishment, it's worth writing down. And if you don't have anything written down, then you're probably not on track to accomplish much. Most of us get caught using our basic human instinct and getting stuck right where we are because we don't have that goal, we don't have that mission, we don't identify what our strengths are. And again, this is about knowing you. If you're not a detailed person, you need to come up with a system to be slightly detailed. You don't have to be perfectly detailed, but also a person who's super detailed probably doesn't need the same accountability as somebody who's people-oriented and non-detailed and non-task oriented. They're going to need somebody around, and it's really good to partnership with somebody or be accountable to somebody who's super detailed. So that way they can ask those questions that you don't, it's the questions you're not asking yourself that are stopping you from succeeding. So this is just some of the stuff. Okay, I'm getting weird messages. But that's what we got for today. This is Friday. Some of the information I'm giving out, like the 5 questions, that questionnaire, that's all part of our school, the MLM Millionaire Academy. It's where we teach direct sales and network marketing. Bess and I and Brandy do. Bess actually started the school. I started working with her, I want to say about 4 years ago. Actually, it's coming up on 5 years. This coming February, I think, is 5 years. But it's 4 years. We started working together. I helped with the curriculum a little bit, and we coach together. So inside of the school, and we teach the basics on Sunday nights. We teach the basics and the 10 things you need to know to actually build your business. And then Wednesday, we actually cover leads, because a lot of people are like, well, I'd love to do direct sales, but I just don't have the network. I don't have the people. I don't know what to say. I don't know who to say it to. Well, that's what those 2 classes are for. They solve those 2 things. And we actually have worked with, I think last year we added it up, about 90 people in, I want to say it was 7 or 8 different countries and 30 different companies. So we teach this, the same principles work in every company. I've worked in several companies and succeeded in several companies, and both inside direct sales and outside direct sales, and the principles are the same. They're the same. I'm using the same stuff that I teach inside the school with our real estate company, and we're moving ahead, and I'm getting text messages from people who are, both real estate agents and investors, and they're like, hey, this is work, like, you're doing really well. How are you doing this? Like, how do you guys get so many appointments? That's part of our class. I'm like, you should get in class. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody for being on. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Of course, we don't do this show on Saturday and Sunday because we're going to be out selling houses and doing things. I actually do a showing for the first time. I haven't done a showing in a long time. Well, at least a showing on an existing property. I show new homes all the time, but this is an existing property helping somebody out. So appreciate everybody for jumping on, and we will see everybody Monday, if not before, and we're covering John C. Maxwell's Winning with People. Hasta luego.